Hello and welcome to Glamour Goosebumps, where we talk about all the weird, the creepy, and the unexplained. On today's episode, we'll be telling a true haunted story that happened to a friend of mine. Unfortunately, it would claim the lives of a few family members, but it's a true story and it's sure to give you the goosebumps. But I'll be doing all of that while doing my makeup at the same time, so we'll be doing this dragon-inspired look and teaching you how to do it step by step. You can also look on my Instagram and follow those steps as well. I know I haven't been the best at giving your spook fix for the week, but I promise that I will get better at that. Please like and subscribe so that you get that bell every time a new video is available. And thank you so much for being so supportive. I hope you enjoy this haunted tale.
In August of 2012, my mom and I were looking to move into a house that was closer to the school. We had been looking at the area for a while but couldn't find anything in our price range. We kept looking for a month until my mom put on a Facebook status asking anyone if they knew of a place to rent in the area. A woman by the name of Lacey messaged my mom saying she wanted to break her lease and would give my mom her townhome if we moved in within a month. We were shocked to find a place so quick, so cheap, and 3-bedroom townhome. Aside from Lacey moving out so fast, the townhouse lease was very cheap for the area. When we toured the house, it looked great. It had 3 good-sized bedrooms, a full kitchen, a big living room, and a basement. However, the basement door was locked, and when signing the lease a couple weeks later, we noticed it said, "Don't go into the basement." We moved in quickly after signing the lease, and for a couple weeks it was great. We hadn't noticed anything weird until one night. My mom called me while at a friend's house. She told me not to come home because someone had broken into the basement and was trying to get into the house. She told me the dog was barking at the door and the doorknob was wiggling. She was calling me from the bathroom after calling the police and seemed scared. The police came and found nothing suspicious. The basement window wasn't broken into and all the doors were locked and shut. After the incident with the basement, my mom kept hearing random sounds around the house. Doors would close on their own, lights would turn on and off, and random things would go misplaced. From that initial fear, my mom started drinking to help her fall asleep. At first, it was just one cocktail to help her calm her nerves. She did this until one night I came home from a party and found my mom sprawled out on the kitchen floor, unconscious. I checked to see if she was breathing, and she was, so I put a pillow under her head and figured she just got too drunk. The next morning she woke up as if nothing happened to her the night before. I quickly reminded her I thought she was dead last night, and she then recounted to me her first physical encounter with the spirit in her home. She told me she was going to take the trash out and forgot to grab something from the top of the cupboard. My mom was quite short, so she jumped on the counter to reach things. While on top of the counter, she felt something or someone push her. After that, she said everything went black, and she woke up on the kitchen floor. She had huge bruises on her legs and arms. Unfortunately, this would be a reoccurring thing that would happen throughout our stay in the townhouse. After that incident, she finally thought she needed a male in the house, so she called my uncle and asked him to move with us. At the time, I had also been experiencing strange things and was in favor of having my uncle move in, but we would later regret that decision as it would escalate things even further. My uncle moved in around January of 2013. He had heard about the strange things in the house and about the basement. One day he decided he needed to know why the basement was locked and what was in it. He broke into the basement through the outside window. Lo and behold, there was a ton of boxes down there and it was huge, but the first weird indicator was when he went to open the basement door. When he opened the door, he noticed the lock for the door was on the inside. That was weird because months prior, when my mom thought someone was breaking in, if the lock was on the inside, the intruder could have just unlocked the door and let himself in. Over the next few months, we all started experiencing even stranger activity. One night I was sleeping in bed and I woke up halfway asleep to a figure on top of me. It was holding the blanket so tight I felt like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak, but I begged God to help me and started praying in my head. Once I started praying, the force lifted from me. The feeling was unexplainable. Another night I was watching TV in my mom's room and a dark figure ran across the room, blocking the TV and disappearing into the wall. I was so scared, I cried. Everyone in the house was experiencing things weekly. My uncle was shoved down the stairs, and my mom constantly had bruises on her, despite not remembering hitting anything. Finally, we all decided to get a cleanse from a psychic. 2 women came to the house and did a cleansing ritual throughout the entire house. They told us they felt a couple spirits. Most were good, but there was one dark entity that had latched itself to my mom. They said it would wait in the bedroom doorway for her and follow her, latching itself to her soul. At the end of the night, the psychics had us gather in a circle and call out spirits. One yelled, "If there is any spirit here that wants to make yourself known, come out now." Immediately, there was a loud bang on the basement door. I had known there was a spirit, but this made it real for all of us. We were all now in the same room with no one else in the house, and the spirit made its presence known. It was loud, and it was violent. The women yelled for it to go away, and the banging stopped. They cleansed the door to the basement, and after a couple hours they left. We thought it was the end of our horror story, but it was just the beginning. For a couple months, everything seemed calm and no major activity occurred. In those months, my mom and uncle became extremely fascinated with the metaphysical world. They started going to spiritual shops and researching ways to communicate with the other side. In those months, they both would stay up all hours of the night drinking and researching. Then in April of 2013, my mom quit her job. This was completely out of my mom's character. She held a high position at a college which she worked years for and was making really good money. Her quitting her job was completely out of character, and to this day I can't explain why she did it. After quitting her job, my uncle and her would drink and try to tap into the other side. They eventually made a small lounge down in the basement where they would spend all day and all night. Slowly, I started to see personality shifts in both of them. My uncle would become randomly filled with rage and start yelling or throwing things, and then would snap out of it and not know why he acted in that way. My mom would become very disorderly and never want to leave the house. That's when the activity started to ramp up again. I would hear screaming during the night and get woken up by loud sounds right in my ear. The cupboards and the doors would open on their own, and my uncle's daughter's toys would start going off in the middle of the night. The last straw for me was one night the activity got really bad. It was around 3 a.m. and I could hear banging. My mom, my uncle, and I went downstairs to find all the cupboards open and the glasses being thrown out onto the floor. A picture from the wall flew and almost hit my uncle in the head. We could feel the anger and the energy throughout the whole house, and it was almost like the house started to shake. We packed a couple bags and stayed the night in a gross motel off the highway for a couple nights. I had finally had enough, and I stopped coming home. I would go to friends' houses a lot of the time. My mom had become so consumed with the house, the basement, and drinking she barely noticed I was gone. Even after that scary event, my mom and uncle continued to harbor in the basement and try to talk to the spirit in the house. It was like the spirit had taken over their bodies. It got so bad that my mom stopped paying the light and water bill. Sometimes we would go days without electricity or water in the townhome. After I stopped coming home, it all kind of became a blur. My mom stopped working a while back, so she ran out of money and slowly our lives fell apart. I came home one day to my mom sitting on the floor in the dark crying, and all of our furniture was gone. She had sold it to pay rent. I crouched down to her and hugged her. She looked me in the eyes and said, "It's this house. When I'm in it, I feel trapped and suffocated, but when I leave, it calls me back." Those words solidified the evil of that house to me. Eventually, rent became past due, and we were evicted. When the day came to move out from the house, my cousin came to help and had to pry my mom off the basement steps. She refused to leave and latched herself there with superhuman strength. It took 4 of my male cousins to pull her off. The woman that my mom was and the woman she became while in that house were 2 separate people. After moving from that house, I hoped things would get better, but they spiraled even more. My mom continued to drink and let it consume her life. The woman that once owned a Mercedes and made 6 figures now lived in a small trailer with her dad and uncle, drinking her life away. One day, while visiting my mom at the trailer park, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "The spirit still follows me. I know it because I can feel him everywhere I go and with everything." I do. I truly believe whatever evil entity was in that house latched itself to my mom and never let go. For 6 years after my mom was a horrible and belligerent alcoholic, she gave up everything, including our relationship. When she would drink, it was almost like the evil came out. Her eyes would become black and her face would change. I know it's hard to believe that looking back at pictures, but women in those pictures were not my mom. She looked evil. We put her in rehab multiple times and tried so many times to get her sober, but she always ran back to the bottle. Then, in August of 2019, I got the phone call every daughter has nightmares about. My mom had passed away in her sleep of acute alcohol poisoning. That entity chipped away at my mom until it eventually killed her. I truly believe the evil in the house led my mom to self-destruction and sucked every ounce of life from her. My uncle ended up going to prison after moving from the house, got sober, and got out right before my mom passed. After my mom's passing, I messaged Lacey's son, the woman who previously owned the townhome, to see if they had experienced anything odd in the townhouse, and what I heard back will forever give me chills. He said the reason they moved was because things weren't right there, and his mom wanted to leave immediately. After moving from the townhome a couple years later, Lacey, his mom, passed away in a freak motorcycle accident, and he went to prison. To me, that was no coincidence. That townhouse claimed the lives of the two women that lived there and the freedom of the two men. That entity latched itself to two families and completely destroyed them. I am now trying to pick up the pieces of what the townhome destroyed of my life. The strong, driven, kind woman that raised me would have wanted me to do that. I never thought I would cross paths with evil, but I did, and I'm here to say it's real and it does exist. Thank you for tuning in to this segment of Glamour and Goosebumps. I hope you enjoyed this spooky true story. Unfortunately, I'll keep the person who experienced this story definitely anonymous. Just please send her love and condolences for her mother. But I hope that this gave you your spook fix for the week, and tune in to next week's episode for another spooky tale. Bye.